Imagine living a lie so perfect that not even your closest friends, your neighbors, or even the police could see through it. For 5 long years, Daniel Collins was known as the quiet, hard-working mechanic of Seattle, Washington, but Daniel was never real. Behind the grease-stained hands, the deep voice, and the friendly smile was Samantha Lewis. A woman hiding from a dark past and running from a secret so big it would shatter everything if exposed.
This is the story of a woman who lived as a man for 5 years, fooled an entire town, and how one tiny mistake brought her entire world crashing down.
Stay till the end, because the truth behind this lie is stranger than fiction. Seattle, Washington, a city of rain, coffee, and secrets hidden in plain sight. And in one quiet corner of this bustling city stood a small, rusted auto repair shop. It wasn't the fanciest, but it had one thing no other place could offer: Daniel Collins. Daniel wasn't like the other mechanics. He didn't brag about his work, he didn't party late at night. He didn't even talk much, but when it came to fixing cars, Daniel had magic in his hands. From old beat-up trucks to sleek sports cars, Daniel could make any engine roar back to life. Neighbors loved him, customers trusted him. And in a world full of loud people, Daniel's quiet nature only made him more respected. He kept to himself, he worked hard, he nodded politely and smiled just enough to be liked, but not enough to invite questions. Nobody knew where he came from. Nobody knew what he did before arriving here. And nobody asked. But had they asked, had they looked just a little closer, they would have uncovered a truth so shocking it would flip their entire world upside down, because Daniel Collins never existed. But behind the mask of Daniel Collins was someone completely different. Her real name was Samantha Lewis. And 5 years ago, Samantha vanished from her hometown of Portland, Oregon, without a trace. No goodbye letters, no social media posts, no footprints. She simply disappeared into thin air. Why would a young woman with a bright smile, a promising future, and a loving family erase her entire life? The answer was hidden in her darkest secret. Samantha had been trapped in a nightmare no one knew about. An abusive partner who controlled every second of her life, every word she spoke, every place she went. He isolated her from friends, he monitored her phone. He turned her dreams into dust. One night, it became too much. Fearing for her life, Samantha made a decision that would change everything. With nothing but a backpack, a few dollars, and a fake ID, she vanished from Portland forever. And on that bus ride to Seattle, Samantha Lewis died, and Daniel Collins was born. When Samantha stepped off that midnight bus in Seattle, she wasn't running anymore. She was erasing herself. The first thing she did was cut away her past. Every inch of her long brown hair gone. Every memory tied to Samantha Lewis falling to the floor. Next, her voice. For weeks, she whispered, she practiced. She trained herself to speak lower, slower, with confidence. She watched old films, she mimicked radio hosts. Every syllable was a step further away from Samantha and closer to Daniel. Then, the documents. She learned to forge signatures. She bought fake social security cards from underground sources. She crafted a completely new identity from scratch. And finally, the hardest part, mannerisms. She learned how to widen her shoulders while walking, to keep her hands loose, to nod instead of smile too much, to sit back with ease instead of forward with excitement. She absorbed every tiny detail, every masculine gesture, every unspoken code of male behavior, until even she believed she was Daniel Collins. Samantha Lewis was gone. Daniel Collins had arrived. Perfectly built, perfectly believable, perfectly untouchable. Or so she thought. For the first time in years, she could breathe. Daniel Collins wasn't just a name anymore, it was a life. Within weeks, Daniel found work at a neighborhood auto repair garage, a quiet, tucked away place where no one asked too many questions, and where hard work spoke louder than background checks. And Daniel worked hard, relentlessly hard. He gained trust quickly, customers praised his skills. Co-workers admired his dedication to them. Daniel Collins was just a good, honest man with a mysterious past he didn't like to talk about, and that was fine. Nobody pried. Slowly, for the first time in her life, Samantha felt something she'd never truly had before: belonging. He made close friends, people who respected him for who he was now, not who he used to be. One of them was Emily Rivera. Emily was kind, funny, smart. A woman with her own painful past and a gentle heart. Their friendship blossomed into something more, a quiet, careful romance built on mutual respect and unspoken understanding. But there was always a wall. Daniel never let anyone too close, no overnight stays, no shared secrets. No explanations about old scars or why he flinched when touched unexpectedly. To Emily, he was just a man with boundaries. To Daniel, he was balancing on a knife's edge every single day. And one day, the edge would cut. For 5 years, the truth stayed hidden. But every perfect lie has one tiny crack, and all it takes is pressure to shatter everything. When the officer asked for ID, Daniel didn't flinch. Why would he? The name, the photo, even the barcode, all flawless. He'd paid good money for it years ago. But something wasn't right. The name matched, the format matched, but the database showed a quiet mismatch, a technical flag. No past address on file. It wasn't enough to arrest him, but it was enough to be remembered. Back home, the tension followed him like a shadow. He lived simply, quietly, always polite, always distant. But people noticed things, like how Daniel never had visitors, never smiled fully, never wore short sleeves, even in the heat. At first, they just thought he was shy. Then they thought he was strange. Then, they started to wonder if something was wrong. And then came the tip. No name, no threats, no emotion, just a few chilling words. In a department flooded with hoaxes and spam, this one felt different. Something about it stuck. And someone, somewhere decided to dig. Something had shifted. Daniel could feel it in every silent stare, every awkward pause, every unexpected knock. The storm was coming. And once they started digging, they uncovered a past no one was ready for. It was just before dawn. The streets of Seattle were silent, soaked in the soft blue haze of morning fog. While most of the city slept, the silence was about to be broken. Unmarked cars lined up like shadows outside Daniel Collins' apartment. No sirens, no announcements, just the quiet tension of a life about to unravel. At exactly 5:17 a.m., the front door came crashing down. Daniel stood still, barefoot, heart racing, eyes wide. Not in confusion, but in resignation. He didn't ask why, he already knew. An officer held up the warrant. Another read him his rights, but the real moment of silence came when they uncovered a small, locked metal box beneath the floorboards. Inside, an old ID card, not of Daniel Collins, but of someone else entirely, a woman. With the same eyes, same jawline, same soul. Daniel Collins never existed. Not truly. His name was Samantha Lewis. And the lie that lasted 5 whole years ended in a single, breathless moment. Courtroom for C was packed. Cameras weren't allowed, but reporters scribbled every word. Some came to see justice, others came to understand. But no one expected what they heard. She didn't plead insanity. She didn't ask for pity. She simply told the truth, perhaps for the first time in years. My name is Samantha Lewis, and I became Daniel to survive. He hit me until I bled, until I couldn't recognize myself. I ran, but even then, I was never free. Samantha had faked her identity not to commit fraud, but to escape years of abuse, debt, and fear. Her ex-partner had not only beaten her, he'd ruined her financially and stalked her across state lines. No one helped, no system protected her, so she became someone no one could find. What began as a desperate lie became her only chance at peace. For 5 years, Samantha lived as Daniel, working honestly, living simply, never hurting a soul, until that single mistake, that single crack in a flawless mask, brought it all crashing down. The court called it identity fraud, but many called it something else entirely, a story of survival, a confession wrapped in pain, and a reminder that not all lies are born from evil. When the truth finally surfaced, it didn't just shake the courtroom, it tore the town apart. Some said Samantha Lewis was a hero, a woman who risked everything to escape an invisible war. Others, they called her a fraud, a liar, someone who manipulated the system to hide in plain sight. The story exploded across media outlets. Headlines blared, "Mechanic was woman in disguise." "Fake ID, real pain, Seattle's double life exposed." Social media went to war, hashtags flooded timelines, hashtag justice for Samantha versus, hashtag she lied to. TikTok users made documentaries, Reddit threads hit 10,000 comments overnight. A quiet mechanic had become a viral storm. After weeks of testimony, of truths spoken through tears and wounds reopened in public view, the gavel fell. Samantha Lewis was found guilty of identity fraud, but the judge saw more than the crime. He saw a woman who had endured the unthinkable, who rebuilt herself not to deceive, but to survive. There would be no prison. Instead, probation and counseling and a new chance to finally live as herself. But Samantha didn't disappear after the trial. She didn't vanish into shame or run from the past. She stood tall, and she told her story again and again, not for fame, not for sympathy, but for every woman still living a lie in silence. For every survivor still waiting to be heard. She became more than a headline. She became a voice, the voice she once had to bury, just to stay alive. The truth set her free, but the lie saved her life. It's been 3 years since Samantha Lewis stood in court, her truth exposed, her life unmasked, but instead of hiding, she chose to speak. Samantha now travels the country. She tells her story, not to glorify the deception, but to honor the strength it took to survive. She speaks about identity, about fear, about what it means to become someone else, just to live another day. She is not just a survivor. She's a symbol of resilience, of transformation, of courage found in the darkest places. Sometimes survival doesn't look like escape. Sometimes survival means becoming someone else, long enough to return to who you truly are. Samantha Lewis didn't fake her life to trick the world. She did it to save herself. And in the process, she gave a voice to millions who were still hiding. If Samantha's story moved you, share it. If you believe survival deserves a second chance, like, comment, and subscribe. Because somewhere, someone is watching this, trying to find their way back home.